Just your impressions after training camp of Hunter Long. It's unusual to see a tight end with 17 yards a catch. What kind of a weapon can he become in this offense?
I think he can be a huge weapon. Even more important is his blocking ability. Usually when you find a tight end who's that successful in the pass game, they're usually not as good of a blocker. So you're looking at a complete tight end who can line up and help us a ton in the run game. And then at the same time, he can flex out and basically be another receiver for you. He creates a weapon really anywhere on the field. And then you get into the certain field position and he's even more of a weapon. So I'm just really glad he's here. I like the way he works. He handles everything like a pro. He's very mature. And I think he's going to be one of the best tight ends in college football this year.
Just talk about his value in the red zone. Is that the kind of target that a quarterback can have a second look to on fades, any kind of things like that?
Yeah, any big receiving target is hard in the red zone. You can get bodied up down there. You can get pushed around down there. So whether it's a big receiver or a big tight end, it just makes it hard on a defense. But again, I think the thing that's going to separate him is his ability to block at the point of attack. Being around the NFL, that's what they talk about, right? Can you find a guy who can do it all? And I'm hoping that we can showcase his skill set this year and what we're going to do and show people that he can do it all.
We'll go next to Tim.
You mentioned, I was going to ask that about the NFL and the role of the tight end. When you're on the defensive side and you have to game plan for that, how do you line up a linebacker? Do you have to be careful in the passing game when you're looking at a guy who can come off the line of scrimmage or split out wide? Like, how does that multi-purpose tight end kind of make trouble for defenses like that?
Yeah, it creates matchup issues. If he's spread out, do you have a safety that can cover him? Do you have to bring in a linebacker that can cover him? What personnel do you treat it like? If you get a guy who can do a lot of different things, say we line up in with 2 tight ends, but now we're using him as a wideout. Do you treat it like 11? Do you treat it like 12? If it's 21, and do you treat it like 12 or do you treat it like 20? There's so many different variables he can bring because we can use him all over the field. So the defense is going to have to look very closely at our tape and figure out how we're using him each week. So we need to use that to our advantage, and that is a big pain when you're trying to game plan for somebody.
We'll go next to Rich.
We okay?
Rich, you had it, and then you just muted it. Oh, man, we almost had you.
Hey, I'm a technophobe. What can I tell you?
All right, we'll get you back here soon.
Okay. What I was going to say is, how would you line up the tight end? Do you favor him on one side or the other, or does it depend on the matchups?
With Hunter?
Yeah.
Big
Favor him on the right side or the left side?
You guys all up today and decide to make this a Hunter day?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter which side he lines up on. I mean, he might have more of a preference. I just think you call your formation, whether he's left, right, lines up in the backfield, lines up at tight end, lines up at the X, Y, or Z. Ask him where he feels more comfortable. But a defense is going to have to know where he's at, that's for sure.
Do you have the depth at the position to actually do a double tight end set with a single back?
Yeah, I think you're going to see 2, 3, maybe even 4 tight ends. So I think people who have not seen us on film, they better prepare for 2 tight end sets, 3 tight end sets, and 4 tight end sets.
We'll go next to Andrea Adelson.
Hey, Jeff, I was just curious now that you've gone through these practices, how much of the install you guys have been able to do in terms of your scheme and the things that you prefer to do? Because I know there were some concerns without the spring about how much you'd be able to get in.
Yeah, it's still, at least talking defensively, we were able to get in more than I thought. Our guys picked up things pretty quickly. I was concerned about that. But we've been able to do a little bit more than I thought, especially we're pushed back now to the 19th. So this week is really a bonus week for us because we're still 3 weeks out. So we've been able to push it a little bit. And then I think what we need to do is we look at everything that we've put in. And then I think within the next 2 weeks, we got to figure out what we do best. And whatever we do best is how we have to start off the season. And then I think we can build off of that as we get going. But there's been a lot of inventory put in. You might not see it all week 1, 2, and 3. You might see a little bit more 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, 9. But we've been able to get more than I thought in, and that's a credit to our guys for just learning it.
Where do you feel like the strengths are right now based on what you guys have been able to implement?
The strengths of our team.
Yeah.
Well, I think our O-line, I think the experience there. I think we have some good running backs. And I think obviously we keep talking about Hunter. I think our tight end is really a good player. While our wide receivers, they might not have the numbers. I'm excited to see what they can do this year. I think you'll see, the ball thrown a little bit more. So I'm excited to see what that group can do. But the experience with the O-line, the tight end, that's probably where we have the most experience on the football team right now. Certainly the quarterback position is one that we don't have too many reps with. So I think those are the strengths of the team right now.
We'll go next to Dan Rubin.
Building off that, when you talk about being able to put most of it in, do you find that there are things that are, I shouldn't use the term easy, but that there are easier coverages or more basic coverages that they have to grab onto, or can you start with something a little more complex and then strip down from there?
You start basic, especially on defense. We start basic. So, for example, if we use cover X, everything's built off that coverage, and everything stems from that coverage, and everything moves and looks and feels like that coverage. And then you just started adding little things to it to change it up. Once you master that, you move on to another major, and you work on that coverage, and you work on all the little intricacies of that coverage. So you start basic, and then you build off of it. And the guys have done a good job with that so far.
Anything else for Jeff before we go?
Adam, how you doing, man?
What's up, Jeff? How are you, man?
Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you. Hey, real quick, I just want to ask you, in your opinion, what type of teams and what type of coaches do you think are best kind of equipped to handle what this season is going to be, just with all the potential stoppages and unusual parts about this season? What type of teams and coaches are best equipped to handle that?
No, that's a tough question. I think every team and every coaching staff is a little bit different. I think it's going to come down to there's going to be ups and downs, and it's who can just kind of be consistent, not get too high, not get too low. The teams with a lot of depth might have a little bit of a benefit at them, just because, say there's a group of guys that get sick or have to quarantine and you miss them for a game. There's some teams that can't afford to lose anybody. And then there's some teams that, I was on one of those teams last year where you're four strings ready to roll. So I think the teams that have a lot of depth and experience, they'll have a benefit. But then I think it's the teams that buy in and really love one another and stick together, kind of like what our guys have done so far. I mean, again, you look at what we've been able to do and stay healthy thus far. And you got to give the guys credit for respecting each other, loving each other, and really doing it for each other. The teams that can do that and be unselfish and not go out and not, and do all the little things like wearing your mask and the social distancing. And I think those are the teams that are going to have a chance. But they're going to be ups and downs. We just keep telling the guys, we're not going to flinch. We're just going to keep going.
Are there depth areas that matter more than others in a year like this?
Oh, yeah. I think at every position they matter, but, it really all depends what you have, right? If you don't have a backup quarterback, I mean, you're probably in more trouble than you are if you don't have, two backups at another position that you can kind of hide a little bit. So there's key positions that make a team go that you better be pretty solid with. We gotta make sure everybody's ready, and that's what I keep telling the coaches. Like, your third string guy better know what he's doing. Your true freshman better know what he's doing, because all of a sudden he could be the guy. And we got to play. We can't just say, hey, my starter's out, we're going to take this week off. And that's probably the fun thing about this, right? Like, everybody might have an opportunity to go out and play this year. So freshmen, get ready. Let's go. And whoever we have to line up with, let's just line up and play and see where we're at, and then go get better. So we're not going to flinch. We're not going to make excuses. If it's our whole third team playing in the second week of the season, we're going to go out and do our best. And I'm not going to sit up here and say, oh, it was our third team. Like, we need to get those guys ready and go play ball.
Thanks.
We'll take two more. First with AJ.
AJ, I can't hear you, man. I think you're on mute. Did Dan give you his computer? Still on mute, AJ.
Sorry, AJ. I think you might be having
AJ, write it
technical
down
difficulties.
and hold it up.
We are going to skip AJ and we'll just wrap things up with Andrea.
As a follow-up to what you just said, Jeff, how has this team been able to avoid positive coronavirus situations where there are other teams in your own conference that have been unable to do that? Not commenting on those other teams, but specific to you guys. How have you guys done that?
Well, I think it started with the leadership. Father Leahy giving us the resources we need, to our medical team, to our training staff, to our ops people, to the people that clean the buildings. You give them credit, but then you give the team credit. We constantly talked about if you're going to do something selfish that puts you in jeopardy of getting sick, it's not just you. It's Max Richardson, who's a senior and has 1 year left to try to change his life. So if you go out and you make a choice and you get sick, you're risking him getting sick. So it's not about you, it's about your teammate. And we just got the guys to buy in and do it for each other and not be selfish and think about each other. And I told the guys all along, if they don't feel comfortable with that, I'm okay with that. Come back when this is done. I won't judge you. I'll still love you. I'll still coach you. We'll still give you a shot to play. But I want guys in the room that are going to take care of the guy next to them. And the way to do that is to take care of yourself. And that's why I give them the credit and them the buy-in. And that's why I'm so glad I'm here coaching this team. It's such a great start knowing that they've bought in and they've listened. And I think we've become a really tight team because of all of this.